Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone on the phone. So this morning, to follow on Larry's presentation about emerging technology team, we're going to focus on continuous manufacturing and talk about policy considerations, and I'll start, and then Rapti will talk about Q13. One of the reasons why we're talking about continuous manufacturing is because this is one of the areas in which the emerging technology team has had the most experience and been doing the most work in the last several years. We have identified CM as a novel technology for the pharma industry, and that we recognize there is great potential to increase the efficiency, flexibility, agility, robustness of pharma manufacturing through because CM has the possibility of having integrated processing, fewer steps, potential smaller footprint, as well as online monitoring control for increased assurance of product quality in real time. So ultimately, we see that this benefits both patients and industry. So what is continuous manufacturing for those of you that are not familiar with CM? CM is a process based on flow, so just from an academic perspective, it means that materials come in, some kind of transformation, and materials go out at the exact same time. And so the implementation of continuous manufacturing from what we generally see now as mostly batch processing, so unit operation, hold some material, move to the next unit operation, hold that material, move to the next unit and so you can hold the material in between, moving towards more of an end-to-end approach, which is what I just described, where materials come in as materials go out. And so what we've been seeing and what we've been working with is more of a hybrid approach in terms of implementation. So there are some unit operations that are integrated together and considered continuous, and then there are some processes that are still batch manufacturing. So we're seeing more of a movement towards a hybrid approach with definitely discussion on this end-to-end. And so this is really what continuous manufacturing is, and there are many benefits. So a timeline, we've been working on this for many years, similar to what Larry was just talking about. So we've had 5 applications approved between 2015, 2016, 2017, another 2 in 2018, and we have also published multiple papers as well. Okay, and the next step is Q13, and Rapti will talk about that. So because ETT has had the most experience and work in continuous manufacturing, it's one of the areas in which we've also been looking to see how we can share this information and encourage wider implementation of continuous manufacturing where it's appropriate for your products and processes. So the next step that we took was to put together a draft guidance for industry based on our experience and learning. And so this was published in February 2019 as a draft, and it's our current thinking on quality considerations for CM of small molecule solid oral dosage products regulated by CDER. There are principles in there that are applicable to other types of products and other dosage forms, but this is where we had the most experience, and so this is where we focus this draft. It includes recommendations for how applicants should address considerations in applications, including supplements. And there are broad concepts in the draft guidance as well. You will notice one thing that I wanted to highlight that you see here with the purple arrow is that when we publish our guidance documents, or our draft guidance documents, they're published under certain categories, okay? And one of the categories is pharmaceutical quality and CMC. One of the categories is pharmaceutical quality and manufacturing standards, CGMP. So this guidance is one of the very few that actually combines those two concepts, moving towards that one quality voice that we've been talking about for many, many years. So you'll see that that is actually, that's something new, and I wanted to point that out, and you'll see why later. So the content of the draft guidance includes some CM concepts in the beginning, control strategy, process validation discussion, additional PQS considerations, and then an appendix with ECTD locations for info and definitions. So The docket closed a few months ago. We received 24 letters to the docket, many from different industry associations as well as individual pharma companies, including the companies who have had applications approved and have talked to the agency through the ETT program, including prospective contract manufacturers, equipment manufacturers as well, and consultants. So first, we want to thank everyone for taking the time to provide input. It's really valuable in terms of our next steps and understanding the feedback and perspectives. Okay, so I am an engineer by training, which means that when I categorize these, there were a lot of categories, all the comments. There were over almost 400 individual comments within the 24, and I was able to whittle this down to only 44 categories. Okay, so this is really consolidated here. But these are the top categories that we see. It doesn't include ones that I considered editorial comments or kind of just general positive, negative comments, but you'll see at the top of the list comments on process monitoring control, process validation, scale up, input material control, data systems, definition of a batch, and some other categories as well. So some of the highlights that I just wanted to talk about. First of all, as I mentioned on the front, in terms of how the guidance was categorized, it's both CMC and CGMP. So there were actually comments that we received that requested that we provide more clarity in terms of decoupling the quality concepts that are traditionally considered review. So what goes in an application versus inspection, what's on inspection, and we were really making an effort to actually integrate those concepts because we are all part of the quality, one quality voice. And so it's not that there are things that need to be done in multiple ways and multiple times. I think a lot of these concepts can be integrated together to have one common platform. So there was discussion around either integrating the quality concepts or decoupling them, and so this is an area that we saw. There was also discussion on process validation and having more discussion on the benefits that companies integrating CM can see in terms of process validation. So how can CPV really be used as an alternative approach, perhaps to stage 2, or how can we really see the benefit in stage 3 for in process validation for CM? So that was one area of comment as well. There was a request for additional guidance on data integrity and data handling for continuous manufacturing systems. And I think that this is what would be really helpful is if companies that have been working on these issues really bring some of these issues to us so that we can better understand some of the challenges that you have when it comes to data handling for a lot of the online, inline, large amounts of data. There were also some comments on the expectation of inline or online monitoring. So whether that is well, either way, continuous manufacturing is inherently different than batch manufacturing, okay? And so the way that it operates, it's really important to have that real-time monitoring associated with the line. And so that's something that we also saw as a theme in the comments. There were many comments about runtime extension and how this was should not be considered part of scale-up, or it should be something that's evaluated during PPQ, stage 2 process validation, the process performance qualification. So that was another comment. There were a set of comments around diversion of material in real time on the line, and then when an investigation is necessary, when an investigation is not necessary, rejection of a small amount of material and what that means in terms of a partial batch release. And ultimately, I think that comes down to understanding the stability of your process and knowing that your process is running in a state of control, ultimately. So that a partial batch potentially can be released. And then last, there were comments around explaining the regulatory process regarding drafting of ICH Q13 with publishing this draft guidance as well. And so this is a segue into Rapti's portion of the talk, and she is going to go into a lot more detail on that. Thank you.
So to move on to the ICH portion of it, emerging technologies like continuous manufacturing require us to re-examine our regulatory framework. There are new concepts that are coming in, and we need to see how our existing regulatory framework works with the new one. And today's pharmaceutical sector is a globalized industry. Most companies wish to market their products in multiple different countries and submit their submissions to different regulatory agencies. So to adopt a technology like continuous manufacturing, it makes it very difficult for a company to use these technologies when different countries have different regulatory expectations. So it's important to have a harmonized approach. And this is part of the reason why an international conference for harmonization and ICH guidance on continuous manufacturing would be very valuable. It'll give a common set of regulatory fundamentals for industry and regulators to use. And it will also widen the adoption of continuous manufacturing, make it much more easy to implement throughout the pharmaceutical sector. The ICH Q13 guidance on continuous manufacturing was initiated in September 2018. And the expert working group met in November at Charlotte, North Carolina, and drafted the concept paper and the business plan. This picture was taken during that meeting, shows the EWG members. And there are people from 11 different regulatory agencies, namely the 3 founding ICH members, Europe, Japan, and the US, as well as Brazil, Canada, Switzerland, China, Chinese Taipei, Republic of North Korea, Kazakhstan, and I think I'm missing one other person, but you'll probably see it out here. And Singapore. I think I did not mention Singapore. And we have the WG also has representatives from pharmaceutical trade organizations, including excipient organizations. And these organizations, the representation is from both new drugs, generic drugs, biotechnology drugs. And we also have observers from Pharmacopoeia, both from the US and Europe, as well as the PICS organization. Scope of the ICH Q13 guidance is far broader than the FDA's draft guidance. FDA's draft guidance, as Tara said, is limited to solid oral dosage form manufacture, whereas the Q13 is broadly applicable to small molecules and therapeutic proteins, both drug substance and drug products. And the concepts in that could also apply to biologic and other types of biotechnology products, the sort of products that are regulated by CDER. And the objective of this guidance is to provide guidance to both the industry and regulatory agencies regarding the development, implementation, and assessment of CM technologies for the manufacture of drug substance and drug product, for small molecules and therapeutic proteins, including new products as well as existing products. So they can be used to change an existing batch process into a continuous process. And this guidance will capture the main key technical and regulatory considerations and will try to harmonize the expectations. The guidance will also address some cGMP elements that are unique to continuous manufacturing. But it will not cover all of the cGMPs, which are fairly common across multiple different types of dosage forms and technologies. The concept paper, this is a rough outline of the concept paper, the main buckets. It will contain definitions and regulatory concepts like startup shutdown, state of control, and the talk after mine will go into more detail on some of these concepts. And key scientific approaches will be covered in this guidance. Things like system dynamics, monitoring frequency, all of these need reevaluation when you move into a continuous mode, and this guidance will cover some of the expectations regarding those. And it will also go into some of the regulatory aspects, including aspects that are relevant for life cycle management of a continuous process. An ICH guideline, any kind of ICH guideline goes through multiple milestones, and this sort of sketches out the different milestones for developing a guidance. So the first part is consensus building and developing the technical content. This of course takes the longest time. And the parties, all the regulatory members and the industry representatives need to come to an agreement and harmonize the expectations. And so that's step 2A and 2B to get the initial draft together and more consultation. And then by step 4 would be the formal adoption of the ICH harmonized guidance. And then step 5 would be implementation. So where we are is we initiated the guidance, and we have now started putting the technical content together. And we will be discussing this technical content at the November 2019 ICH meeting in Singapore. The preliminary draft is almost ready. I would say that actually the due date for the draft is today. To our rapporteur, I should have mentioned in the earlier slide, the rapporteur of the ICH Q13 is Larry Lee. You saw him this morning. And the topic lead for the guidance is our Japanese colleague, Dr. Yoshihiro Matsuda. So we will have we will discuss the very preliminary draft at the November ICH meeting. And we hope to have it finalized by November 2021. So this is rather an ambitious goal. And then, of course, the implementation will come after that time frame. And for any kind of manufacturing technology, the regulations, the regulatory requirements need to be grounded in reality. It needs to be practical and implementable. So to get a better understanding of the technologies, the regulatory members of the expert working group are going to visit a few select continuous manufacturing sites. So they can observe the equipment, how the equipment is operated, talk to the people who have actually developed the processes, who run these processes on a day-to-day basis, to get some first-hand knowledge on how these continuous processes work. So this is going to be a very, I would say this is like one of the few first times for ICH to actually have these kinds of, practical visits. But I don't really know exactly what's gone on with some of the other ICH guidelines. But this is very exciting that this guidance is going to be very practical and realistic. And more information can be found at the ICH website. And this website will contain updates on the Q13 guidance development. So thank you for your attention, and I will just summarize this, summarize the main takeaways from this presentation. We have received docket comments, and they are very valuable. And comments include many topics like process control and monitoring, process validation, scale-up, input material control. And the ICH Q13 preliminary draft is under development and will be discussed at the November ICH meeting. And the docket comments will be shared with the ICH Q13 expert working group and could inform the development of ICH Q13. So we go to the questions. This is a challenge question because nobody actually, I think, gave you the answer. So at the present time, FDA is not pursuing finalization of the draft guidance for industry quality considerations for continuous manufacturing? True or false? Well, FDA is not pursuing the finalization of the guidance because ICH Q13 guidance will be coming along. This is a question a lot of people want to ask. Why? Which one will supersede which? So it's going to be the ICH Q13. And I would like to acknowledge the people who worked on the FDA draft guidance. So apart from Tara and myself, Barry, Shamista, Celia Cruz, Tom Connor, who's also at the back here, and Christina Capucci-Daniel, Diane Goet, Catherine Hughes, and Thomas Arista all worked on this guidance. So thank you for your attention.